Rants from a crazy Gen Xer. My name's Natalie, and I'm your crazy Gen Xer. Today, October 7th, 2025. I can't believe that it's been 2 years. And I know I'm a different person today than I was 2 years ago. I know a lot more than I did, not all that I should know. But it's a start. And I know one thing for sure. I know that my vote will never be given to anybody who supports Israel. I don't care if they're Democrat. I don't care if they're Republican. I'm just done with that terrorist foreign nation. And I don't want my government supporting them, and so I won't vote for anybody who does support them. I know for me, I actually started to pay attention to what was happening over there in Gaza in 2014 with their March to Return and how Israelis were shooting and murdering children, shooting at children who were just standing at the gate where they are held captive in the Gaza concentration camp. And that is what it is, a concentration camp. You know, we look at things a lot differently for many reasons. And I learned a lot over the past 2 years. Some of the things that I would say in the beginning is that we can't go back to not knowing what we now know, and we can't. I know that after seeing what they did to the Palestinians in 2014, I never fully supported Israel again. And on October 7th, 2023, 2 years ago to today, when the Palestinians were able to break out of their concentration camp and enact revenge upon the people who have been brutally occupying them for decades. I felt joy, and I'm going to come out and say it. I felt a little joy from it. It didn't take too long, though, till the reality set in, and the pit in my stomach knew this was going to be brutal. It was going to be very brutal. And in the early days, I'm like, God, maybe it would just be quick, and maybe, but everything started to come and go, okay? Thanksgiving came and gone, and then Christmas came and gone. And I knew then. I knew after everybody's holidays, I just say Christmas, but I mean, whether it's Christmas, whether it's Kwanzaa, whatever it's, whatever anybody here, I don't know, they follow these, whatever. I knew at that point, once all the holidays came and gone, that they were going to murder everybody in Gaza, and the ones who escaped were going to be the ones who were able to live to tell their story, which is really hard to say, and it's disgusting what is happening, but that's the truth. I was really afraid to even say it in the beginning because I'm so afraid that, like, the Palestinian people, someone's going to see it and they're going to be, it's going to be very upsetting to them. And I didn't want to say it. I only said it a few times, and it was in passing to people's conversations. I'd say, yeah, I know. Your plan is to murder all of them, and you won't stop until all the Palestinians are dead. I get it. And I used to say that to people, especially when they came at me with these fucked up things. I'm not knowledgeable about everything. I'm just a human fucking being, and I see people being treated in an inhumane way and being, like, exterminated. I'm going to feel a certain way. I'm fucking human. And the whole thing, and the Democrats were like, oh my God, I can't believe these people, they're all anti-Semitic. Well, okay, maybe the Republicans I expected this kind of inhumanity from. I didn't expect it from the Democrats. The Democrats really surprised me with their inhumanity. And the truth of the matter is, you can't tell me my whole life, okay? And I'll be honest, I grew up in the era, I went to school in the early 80s, okay? And we had kids, the black kids being bused in, Okay? I we're like the first Gen X is like the first generation who really has that integrated with our schools, you know? Um, and so I was told my whole life that we're all equal. We're, you know, I mean, granted, we had the occasional person who was a Jehovah Witness, and I will say them because they were the people who really stood out. Okay, like when we did the Pledge of Allegiance, there was a girl in my class, and she was in my class like every year, you know, for like 3 or 4 years, I think. Um, she didn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. When we did birthdays, she was told she had to go to the library. I think about this stuff and I think, God, that's kind of horrible. And, you know, when we did like any of the stuff, she wasn't allowed to go on trips. She wasn't allowed to do this. She wasn't allowed to do that. And there was a lot of things she wasn't allowed to do. And it wasn't until I actually got older and met people who were Jehovah's Witnesses to learn exactly why that was, you know? And so I will say that I did think of her as a little different because of it. Granted, I always known that children are just having to follow the rules of their parents. Okay, it's not really their fault, and so I've always known that. Okay, so it wasn't like I thought differently of her like a human being, but I did think it was weird. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I did think it was weird, you know. But we were told that everybody is equal, everybody is the same, everybody, you know, everybody should be treated that way. And so when the Democrats are telling everybody, yeah, everybody's equal, everybody should be treated equally, except these pesky Palestinians over here, they don't deserve to be treated as humans. It doesn't register in my brain that way anymore. You can't tell me my whole life that everybody is equally human to one day, you know, after all these years of it, everybody is equally human except for these people over here. So there was that. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure. I wasn't really even sure who this Hamas person was. Okay, Hamas isn't a person. In fact, I think there was somebody with the last name Hamas, and shortly after the election, some Israeli person killed him. Okay, and that is a real thing that actually happened, and there was like this big old thing, and it was like a year or two after the election, and they did do it. They murdered him, you know. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, there's a lot of tension from that. They're known for just mass murdering people because they want what they want and they think they can murder their way to get it. And this is what I have learned over the past 2 years, is that Israelis believe they can murder anybody they want and get away with it, okay, including U.S. presidents. People say they murdered JFK. I don't know, maybe, you know. If you look up Operation Northwood, you will find something very disturbing, okay? And if we go back to the USS Liberty, it's even more disturbing when you look at that and then pair it with this Operation Northwood. I'll be honest, if someone told me that the government was involved in Charlie Kirk's death, I wouldn't question it. If someone said, and when people now sit there and say that the government was involved with 9/11, I don't question it because I don't now. I really, I used to, and I used to balk at it and say, no. But the truth of the matter is that our government doesn't see us as human beings. Our government sees us as numbers, and basically they don't care about us as human beings. And if you look at what the rich people are up to, there was that rich guy who just got in trouble for basically conning homeless women into signing this waiver to be tortured in his dungeon for a night. Where, and the horrible things that he did to these women, it's just beyond me. It makes me think that, you know, the Hostel movies where people go and pay to murder people, I think that's true. I think it might be true. I think they might really be doing stuff like that. You know, I'll never get the image out of my head of these people beating a monkey to death with mallets. Okay? And if you know you know where that's from. Okay? I'll never get that shit out of my head. You know? But back to Gaza, back to October 7th. I'll tell you something. Okay? I don't condemn Hamas. I don't, because they have a right to self-defense. They have a right to defend themselves. Israel is a brutal occupier, and if the United States was treating the natives in the same manner that Israel treats the Palestinians, I wouldn't be okay with it. And if they escape the reservation, like we had walls around the reservations, and they escaped the reservation, went on a killing spree, I wouldn't blame them for it. I would understand that. I can understand certain types of death. You know, I mean, one, I can't really get wrapped around my head the people who kill for money, but I can understand rage murdering. And that is what happened on October 7th. A lot of these people were so fucking full of rage. I couldn't imagine being a Palestinian. I, too, would grab arms to defend myself. If I was unfortunate to be born there. And I can say unfortunate because the truth of the matter is that I'm born in the United States. I'm very privileged, and I said this in the beginning. We're not at threat for being bombed. I don't go to bed worried that a bomb's going to drop on my house. I don't have that fear. Okay? Because there's nobody who can attack us. Nobody who's willing to. Anyways. You know? We're out there. You got Donnie the fucking Holocauster out there just blowing up civilians on boats off the coast of Venezuela. And they're basically threatening an invasion of Venezuela. Okay? And I do call him the president of war because he has created more war than any other president in our time. He is out there supporting all this. If you don't think for a minute that he was fully aware and supported the attack on Dohan, you're fooling yourself, because of course he was. He's in Somalia attacking them. He's down in Venezuela attacking them. He's even declaring war upon U.S. citizens. Literally. Who fucking does that shit? You know? And I mean, I have to remind myself too, because I can get sucked into this thing too, because I look at some of these people who support him and I think, God, he's just dumb and stuff. But the reality is that they're not my enemy. Even people who support that man are not my enemy. Okay? They're my friend versus than my foe. They're not my foes. Okay? And the reality comes to this is that, you know, our government is our enemy. At least here in the United States. And as long as we're out here fighting each other, we're never going to be able to unite and be able to fight the real enemy. And the real enemy is our elected government, who time and time again has shown they're willing to put all of these other countries above us. Okay? You got the Donnie the Holocauster giving Argentina $20 million or billion dollars. 20 billion with a B. $1 billion to Argentina, who is in direct competition with our U.S. farmers. And in fact, China will now be purchasing soybean from Argentina. From here on out. They'll never come back to the table to buy them from the U.S. You know, I mean, some people say that the U.S. is a dying nation, and I hope so. I mean, we have done horrible things. We go around and do horrible things. You know, I mean, invading Iraq was really, really bad. And I met people who were like some of the first people on the ground. And what they said is that they were there guarding oil fields, you know. And when reports came out of the horrors that were happening, They said it was all true. And these are people who were in there in the first few, whatever, of it all. I mean, I met them, I want to say, in 2003, I think it was. Okay, 2003, 2004, or something like that. And when I tell you I'm a crazy Gen Xer, yeah, I was in mental institutions, and I met people in mental institutions, and I live now in an Army town. It's not just Army, there's Air Force, and, this is a military town. And I met people in there, and these are the things that you hear from these people who are over there. Okay, and who will tell you what was really happening over there. The girl that I shared a room with in there she had night terrors from it. Okay, from all the things that she did over there. And I'm just going to come out and say it. I mean, these are the true things of it. I'm not saying that, soldiers should be given like all these because they're doing horrible things. No, I'm not. I'm not saying that, but they are human, and a lot of them are following orders, and a lot of them, I knew people who went over to the first Gulf War, okay, under Clinton. And I'll tell you what a lot of them would say is that they were given drugs. They were given drugs to make them react a certain way. To cause this so that they would go wild over there. They were given drugs for this, like some type of drug that made them do things. I heard from several people that told me that they were given these drugs. And I remember when they came back, there was something like this thing they called strep A. It was a skin, it was a bacteria on the skin, a flesh-eating bacteria on your skin, and people were worried, like, say someone scraped their knee on the steps to our, courthouse one time. And there was all over the news, I remember people talking about it. You have to be very careful because this can happen. And then if you touch it, you can catch it and all this other stuff. And what it is, it's a skin-eating bacteria is what it was. And it was something they brought back from the Gulf. They caught it from over there and they brought it home. But yeah, they were giving them drugs, so I imagine they currently do that. They make them go wild, and they brainwash them. What do you think boot camp's all about? Boot camp is tearing you down so that you are nothing but raw material for them to brainwash you into what they want you to be. And these are the things that our military does. And I imagine all the militaries do this. So it's hard for me to sit there and say that these soldiers don't deserve some reprieve from what they did. I mean, but they still did it. And so ultimately, they're not truly the innocent people. It's the children that are the innocent. I mean, I know people are like, yeah, it's the men and the women. And I know some people like the women and children. I don't say women and children because I hold the women into the same pile as I hold the men. And, but the children are what I really care about. And the horrible things that Israelis have done to these little children, They sit there and they're like, you think they are targeting? Yes, I do believe that they're targeting children. The doctors tell us they're targeting children. We don't have anybody else in there except for outsider people in there, except for the doctors. And all the doctors tell us this. I'm going to believe the doctors, okay? I mean, granted, I believe the people on the ground because I can kind of see and they're showing us and stuff, more so than I believe the people who are, robbing the Palestinians and stealing from them and tearing up their homes and riding around on little kids' bikes and thinking it's funny and blowing up people's houses just because they can, And I mean, so, yeah. So I would not condemn Hamas. And I don't condemn Hamas. I mean, people are like, you condemn Hamas. I don't condemn. And I won't. And even in the beginning of this, I wouldn't condemn Hamas because I have a belief system that, first of all, I don't think the Palestinian people in Gaza would choose Hamas to govern them if they were given the right to vote at this moment. I don't believe that they would. Okay. I think that they would want new government, even if they're not like, they don't dislike Hamas. It's just the fact that they haven't brought them any substance. Okay. They haven't improved their lives really any. So why would they vote for them? You know? And a lot of them blame them for their situation as well. They blame the fact that they can't leave Gaza. They blame, so I don't think so. And I do know that the Palestinians in Gaza have a different opinion of Hamas than the Palestinians outside of Gaza. And also the ones that are not even living in Palestine at all, they're here in the United States, or they're in Europe someplace, or, they're in some other country. Those people are not, most of them, like, especially, I don't know about all the ones anywhere else. I know about the ones in the United States, okay? A lot of the people who are actually speaking about it, they're U.S. citizens. They were born in the U.S., okay? They're speaking because of the things that their parents or grandparents told them. Okay, my grandma told me why the Mennonites came here to the U.S. It is because the British people were selling them. They would be given land that was like unworkable land. It was dead land, nothing would grow in it. They were given this land, put on this land, and they were made to till it until it was fertile. Once it became fertile, they would take the people and essentially sell them to another kingdom. And so they had the opportunity to come here and get land, and they did come here and they got land. And my grandma told me that that is the reason why they actually came here. They were basically being sold, Now, I also was told the reason that Mennonites weren't given the right to vote until way later in life, okay? After everybody else was given the right to vote. They were like some of the last people because they refused to fight. And it is something they were granted. They didn't, so like the natives and stuff, they were held under that same types of law because they refused to fight too. And so they used to govern themselves and do all these things on the land themselves. And, and the truth of it is that Mennonites aren't really just like we think of them as people, but that is an actual religion. Because I know when my grandma married my grandfather, she converted. And then when my grandfather passed away, she converted back. So it's an actual religion. It's not just like these types of people or whatever. But I don't know anything about the Mennonite communities, really. I've never lived with the Mennonite people. I never went any churches with them. I didn't even live in Ohio. I went on vacation there when I was a kid, and that was about it. My grandma came to the Wisconsin. I grew up there. I didn't have family and everything where, Anyways, yeah. So that's my rant on that. And I will say this. I'm not condemning Hamas. I condemn Israel. And I view Israelis as terrorists. And I'll never see them as anything else. And I do know this because in 2014, I seen a side of Israel I can never go back to not seeing. I know that everybody who has seen the side of Israel today and seen their genocidal behavior, they can never go back to seeing them in any type of positive light. I know that Israel thinks that if they control TikTok and they can brainwash the people, they're going to gain favor and people are going to like them again. It's never going to happen. It's over, Israel. The Palestinians have won. You have lost. You might as well, succumb to the fate. Because when the next generation of U.S. citizens get into power, all of that aid will be cut off. And there will be no military backing. Anything that you get will have to come from the UN. You'll have to get the peacekeepers in there to protect you from Jordan and Egypt, because we're not going to be paying Jordan and Egypt anymore either. We're going to start taking care of our own people, because this is who we need to take care of, our people. We don't need to be paying for war all around the world. And these are things that we can agree on as a society and unite with. Okay? Our reasonings might be different, but we are going to eventually overcome our hurdles with that, and we're going to join as one. Eventually, I will believe it will happen. And we're going to be done with all this shit. And we may not be called the United States of America. We might be called something else in the end of this. You know? And that's okay too. So, on October 7th, 2025, I still do not condemn Hamas. And I will never condemn Hamas, because the Palestinians have a right to defend their life and their freedom against the terrorist Israeli regime. Again, Rants from a GenXer. My name's Natalie, and I am your GenXer. Until next time, be safe out there.